This week, we've seen probably one of the world's major macroeconomic policy changes come out. That's Donald Trump's tariffs, for want of a better word. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about the possible impacts of that, particularly on commercial property and commercial real estate and businesses. Hey, I'm Peter Bender from Bundaberg Commercial, and I've spent probably 40, 50 years now looking at running in businesses and being involved in commercial property. And there's a lot to be said for the changes that Donald Trump has brought out. So, the first thing that we're going to have a look at is what exactly are tariff changes for most people who aren't across economics and only watch the news. That is a concept that may be new to them. And we're going to have a look at that. Then we're going to have a look at what it actually means, what the impacts will be, why it's actually been put in place, and finally comparing some of previous history to have a look at how we can take advantage of it and maybe protect our soft points. So stay with me. If this is the sort of stuff you like, leave a comment, smash that subscribe button, and we'll go on. So the first thing is, what's a tariff? All right, let's say for argument's sake, China or India have built a car, and they can get it to America for $10,000. And the American's cheapest car is maybe $15,000. That gives the Indian vehicle and the Chinese vehicle a huge competitive advantage. Now, Detroit is a huge industry with motor vehicles, and the government has decided it needs to protect it. It can't let it get wiped out. So they will apply a tariff. And suddenly that $10,000 car, in the case of America, will be $13,400. A tariff is essentially an extra tax that's put onto a product that is imported into another country. Okay, so that has normal ramifications. What has been different with what Donald Trump has done now? Well, previously tariffs have been applied to selective industries, like I said, with commercial, with motor vehicles and the likes of that. And it's usually to protect strategic industries that the country may have a lot of people with. And they're used all around the country. Not around the country, it's all around the world. Every country has particular key industries that they want to protect. It may be oil industries, it may be IT industries, it may be financial industries such as Dubai. They have a very much tax benefits for anybody coming in and setting up financial industries, which is why you see so many crypto exchanges based there. So it's not unusual. And it's probably a good point to start. I'm not into giving opinions on whether things are right or wrong. I'm really just saying this is what is. This is why it's happening, and let's have a look at taking the emotion out and just making the most of the opportunity. Because it's only when great changes come that great opportunities come. Normally, if everything is just poking along nice and slowly, you don't get much opportunity. All right, so we explained what a tariff is. The reason, from what my understanding is that Donald Trump wants to increase the financial wealth and financial health of America. Once again, no right or wrong, every country, every president does that. And the way he wants to do it is to increase particularly the manufacturing sector. So these tariffs he's looking to apply for the next 5 to 10 years, and the purpose of that is it will dramatically increase the manufacturing sector within America. For argument's sake, the steel industry has been in the doldrums for a long time. So by putting a tariff, and most tariffs are actually 10%, so that's one thing I haven't mentioned. The Trump tariff, for argument's sake, is 10%, and it doesn't apply to every industry because some industries already have tariffs, but it applies essentially now to every industry that doesn't have a tariff. So if there wasn't a tariff on importing milk, there is now. If there wasn't a tariff on, I don't know, importing books, then there is now. So it's essentially a 10% cost increase. And as you are in business, you know that the higher the cost, the lower the demand, the lower the sales. So you're looking at 5 to 10 years, and he wants to increase, take the steel mills again by suddenly having less competition, because that's what tariffs do. It makes it less competitive for overseas players to enter their market. He's hoping to encourage the steel industry to build up and get some life back into it, build new plants, because it takes 3 to 5 years to build a decent sized factory, build new plants, get those economy going, make America great. I was about to say make Australia great, but yeah, the concept's the same. All right. Now, has this tariff been very unusual? I would say not. If you've been a regular viewer of my channel, you'll be sensitive to the fact that one of the things that I'm a little bit anxious about is that we haven't had what's called a worldwide circuit breaker for quite a few years now. If you look over the history of time, you will find that every couple of years, every 2 to 3 years, you'll get a circuit breaker. Now, the last one we had was a GFC, which was 2021. So suddenly we're looking 4 years since we've had a circuit breaker. So I've been a bit anxious that we haven't had one. Before before COVID, not the GFC, before COVID, we had things like the GFC. We had things like the Russian currency crisis. We had things like the Asian currency crisis. We had bird flu. We had swine flu. We've had a couple of wars in the Middle East. We've had the collapse of the Berlin Wall. There's always traditionally been circuit breakers. And on the financial side, the stock market is a classic example. If it hasn't had a circuit breaker every 3 or 4 years, as it has now, then it's really ripe for a big crash. Once again, Black Friday and Black Wednesday and the second Black Friday we had. So what we're seeing now is normal. The only difference that I think of it is this is almost like deliberately created. And I always have a concern when governments try to fix things. I usually find that industry and business and people in general, if left alone to a stable environment, things will go up and down within a particular range. When governments try to fix things, I find that range suddenly goes up and down, and it's ballistic. But once again, that gives you huge opportunities because things that don't happen all on one side. Like tariff changes aren't going to be all bad, and neither are they going to be all good. There's going to be winners and losers on both sides. And in commercial property, there will be impacts, and there will be winners and there will be losers, same as in business. So the trick is to stand back from the emotion and have a look at how can we actually make the most of this opportunity. All right. I think one of the things that concern me is no one can really forecast what goes on. I see the Reserve Bank of Australia quite often tries to forecast what the economy is, and they have a very sad historical record. It's very difficult to see what the economic impacts are going to be. Like, for one thing, people didn't know how the rest of the world were going to respond. I mean, if you're Australia and suddenly you've got a 10% tariff on coal, well, how is that going to impact on us? And particularly in China. Now, China is really the world's new superpower. And I sort of think a little bit, is Donald Trump almost like in the death throes of the American economy and throwing his last card on the table, like the big poker hand, and trying to bully and make the changes to make America great again? Or is it really going to be the final tipping point that's going to crush the American dollar, and China will then become the supreme economic power and military power around the world? China has responded, and China has responded in a way that says, you are insulting us, you are punishing us, and we won't put up with it. So they've put a tariff of 34% on a lot of American products. So this is sort of like the pendulum. So Donald Trump's gone to one side and China's gone way over to the other side. How that's going to happen, I don't know. We've now got Australia talking to England, so saying, oh, what are we going to do here? How are we going to manage this, for argument's sake? So the rest of the world is now starting to see, okay, the two superpowers have lined up. They've drawn the line in the sand, and they're like a pair of sumo wrestlers looking on either side of the line. Which side are we going to go and how are we going to respond? Now, as I've mentioned, I've been in business a long time, and one thing I know is that business adapts. We will change. As situation comes, people will change. It's very rare that you'll have a macroeconomic trend and people won't change. So in regards to tariff changes, what sort of things can we see that may be different? Well, previously, this is not the first time we've had major tariff changes. I remember it was only probably 2 years ago. China got upset with Australia and put a tariff on beef and sheep exports. And that was really brutal for our farmers. I mean, we're only a pitty little country. When you put a tariff on one of our biggest markets, it really hurts. And one of the responses is we suddenly started selling a lot more sheep to the Middle East. So the rerouting of goods is something that is quite common when tariff comes in. Previously, when America has applied tariffs to China, like I said, this is not new. Previously, what China then did is they exported a heap of their products to Vietnam. And Vietnam then exported into America because America still needed TVs, but they couldn't get them from China. Oh, it just so happens you can get Chinese TVs from Vietnam. Okay, and the good thing is for the Vietnamese, there was no tariff. So it was a political way of getting things around, but it shows that business will adapt. Other things that you'll find as a temporary measure, it's almost like uh, in Queensland we have storm season. So in storm season, we stock up goods, canned goods, gas, water, those sort of things, just in case we get a cyclone or a weather event and we're going to have no power for 3 or 4 years. 3 or 4 days, not 3 or 4 years. Well, it is early in the weekend, and I don't usually do videos, so give me a little bit of slack. Now, you will find that a lot of manufacturers and a lot of retailers were aware that the tariff changes were coming, so they've front-end loaded, which means they have pretty well bought any product they can, and all their warehouses are actually chockers to the hilt. It's a little bit like when COVID first hit. I remember speaking to one of my clients who was a push bike retailer, and I went around after COVID and asked the industry, how you going? Hey, can't get parts, can't get bikes, tough. There's like nothing in the shop. They had like 3 or 4 bikes. Went to one of them and he had mountains of bikes. I thought, what'd you do here? He says, I knew they were going to shut down, so I just went online and bought every bike I could get. You should have seen my house. I had 50 bikes in my lounge room, 20 in the bathroom, and he was making an absolute killing. That was an example of someone being proactive and front-end loading. Now, the issue with that is it's only short-term. If these tariffs are going to go 5 to 10 years, there's no amount of front-end loading that you can do. But sometimes you can make an absolute fortune in a short period of time. If you've got all the TVs in the world and you sell them in a month, who cares? You've sold all the TVs in the world. It would have taken you maybe 15 years to sell the volume that you did. Okay, now in regards to consumers, there's a different sort of way of having a look at things. So, firstly, you'll find that the cost of products will go up if you're looking at exported products or products that are imported. And for a lot of countries, they have a deficit balance of payments. That means they bring more stuff in than they send out. So, when your prices go up on your goods that are coming in, it's going to hurt your hip pocket. You're also going to find that some of the retailers may try to absorb some of the cost. 10% isn't life-changing for a lot of businesses. My experience is that businesses can handle up to about a 30% hit, which is interesting that China hit 34%. They're very good with their economy, don't underestimate them. So a 10% hit, a lot of suppliers may just absorb that. A lot of retailers may absorb that. So if you've got a product that's got a 30% margin, it means you're starting to sell it for a 20% margin. It's not pleasant, doesn't make you happy, but if you look at the price rises of things in the last 12 months, you would recognize that a lot of these suppliers are pretty well price gouging, particularly the big band retailers. I've seen the prices of pork rise, and I also know that from the abattoir's point of view, they are buying pork from farmers at less than what it takes a farmer to produce it. So the margin increase that has come across pork in Australia in particular is not going to the farmers, it's the retailers. So I think a lot of retailers are in a situation where they can absorb some of this cost. The other thing is you can buy less. Now, buying less and also margin has the scary impact of that starts to affect the economy. And one of the things we're trying to work out is what is the economy going to do? If we look at Australia as an example, a lot of our exports is iron ore, gas, natural, primary industry sort of type products in the mining sector. A huge amount of our industry comes through there. We've also have things like education and tourism and financial services. But Australia makes money from digging a hole in the ground. It's the way it works. We don't have the option of doing a lot of those changes. One of the things that Trump wants to see is the growth of manufacturing in America. And sometimes it's just a matter of timing. Hyundai, who is based in Korea, have just gotten to the stage where they're ready to turn dirt and build a really huge mega factory in America so they can produce cars directly in America. That's the stuff that Trump wants to see. Now, can our mines do that? Well, the big players we have, they have mines overseas. They have mines in Africa. They have mines in Asia. They have mines in Europe. But still, it's a very small percentage, so we don't really have that option. So I really do worry in regards to how our economy is going to go when we have a tariff of an extra 10%. Time will tell. So that may be an aspect if I talk about soft points. If you're in the mining industry or you've got mining customers, start having a serious think about what you're going to do and how you're going to respond. Put some scenarios in place. What if nothing happens? What if this happens? What if that happens? Start doing some scenario planning. Get ahead of the curve. Okay, so will these tariffs affect the current momentum in Australia? Now, Australia right now has a bit of a disparity in economy. Sydney and Melbourne, which is the majority of population base, is probably starting to come out of the bottom of their depression. Queensland is just thumping and thumping, and probably for the next 5 to 10 years as well, and particularly because of the Olympics. That's a huge project. Most of the governments and businesses around Australia do not have long financial plans. I talk to most businesses. You got a business plan? Yeah, it's in my head. Okay, so how long does it go for? Oh, I know how I'm going to make business out of the next week, or I might make it to the next BAS quarter. Very few have long periods, and I'm a little bit like that too. I mean, I have a business plan right here. I look at it regularly, check it regularly, see how things are going. But even that only goes out to 2 years. Trump's tariffs are looking at a 5 to 10 year plan, so it suddenly makes thinking for business very different. So we need to have a look at timeframes to work with. Will the tariffs affect the Australian economy? That's hard to tell. My gut feel is that it may. Like our equity partners in life will say, when America sneezes, the rest of the world catches the cold. But I must say, when China gets a chill, the rest of the world gets a cold. So if China and America are starting to sneeze and get chills, then I can't see that we're going to have opportunities as a nation to run with big opportunities. However, it's like guerrilla warfare. When you're in a situation and your enemy is like 60 trillion times bigger than us, we need to adapt to guerrilla tactics. And guerrilla tactics is, okay, how do we take care of our own environment? How do we take care of just in my case, how do I make sure that I'm safe and strong in Bundaberg? What can I do? And the strategies I have in place with my business plan, where I'm looking at doing a lot of national work and even international work now. So that if the economy in Bundaberg and Queensland slows down, Australia slows down, I'm not going to be, it's going to hurt. I'm not going to be pleasant, but I'm not going to collapse because we've got plans in place to get revenue from other areas. All right. One of the things that I'm concerned about is when governments try to fix things, and I mentioned that before. So the responses of the rest of the world is going to be interesting, and we just got to sit back and watch. And I really encourage you to step to the side. Let the crowd and the emotions, those who watch, Channel 7, 9 and 10 news every night and panic about the tariffs that are coming through, just let them go. Let them be like lemmings and jump over the cliff. What I want you to do instead is get on a hillside, have a look. Where's the opportunity? Because like I said, there's no such thing as only good. There's good and evil. There's, good luck and bad luck. There's success and there's failure. And life for 90% of us is in those two extremes. So have a look at where the opportunities are and make the most of it. See how you can run with them. Now, what sort of reactions can we do? There's a couple of things. We can wait and see how things go. Nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of wise people in the world, particularly those who are long-term investors in the stock market and debentures and property. They know that there's always been circuit breakers, and property prices have gone down, they've crashed, and then rebounded. And not all circuit breakers are bad. Like I said, in some instances, circuit breakers are good. They're really much just how you react to them. So you've got the fact that you can wait. You can play probabilities. You can say, okay, what's probably two or three things that would happen? Okay, there's probably going to be economic changes. All right. There's probably going to be changes in supply and demand. There's probably going to be changes in consumer confidence. Those sort of things you can have a look at and say, okay, now how does that affect my business? How are the rents going to go in the future? Maybe I should be securing my new tenants in now rather than later. Maybe I should be having a look at, is this a time to buy key assets or is it a time to wait? These are things that you can start to have a bit of a conscious think about and work with. At the end of the day, I really liked a book called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. And one of the things that I picked up out of that is the incredible mathematical probability that things return to the mean. So what do I mean by that? Okay, stock exchange traditionally will give you an 8% return. There will be times when you may lose 20%. There are times when you may pick up 100%. But the longer you look at the stock exchange, you will see that the average is 8%. And it always returns to the mean. Pretty well everything's like that. Rainfall. You can have some of the places out Western Queensland haven't had rain for 5 years. 5 years, no rain. You can't tell me farming's a lifestyle choice. But my respect and thank you very much for all those who are out there doing that hard work. They've now had like 4 years worth of rain in 2 months. And unfortunately, their cattle are drowning out there. It's just, once again, why would you be a farmer? But thanks very much for the effort. You have a look at that, but over like the last century, there's an average rainfall and things will always return to average. Sometimes it goes up dramatically, sometimes it goes down. So these macroeconomic changes that Donald Trump is doing with tariffs is going to tilt that needle a little bit to an extreme, either up or down, but things will eventually go back. So those who wait will recognise that eventually things will go back to the mean or return to normal. So how does that work in commercial property? Well, in commercial property, there are probably three families that own maybe 50% of commercial real estate in Bundaberg, or over previous time have had it and have sold it on. Those people know that the benefit of just waiting and constantly tweaking their prices, tweaking their product, and they just keep selling their product. Sometimes they'll sell more land than other times, and other times I know they just need to hunker down. So this is not new to a lot of experienced commercial property owners. You just need to make sure, once again, that you have a mix. You have good tenants, you have short-term tenants, you have new tenants, you have new build coming on, you've got construction going on, you've got maintenance going on. Keep working on it, and over the long term, you're going to benefit very well, as is shown by some families in the region. One of the things that we do need to have a look at, and I touched on a little bit, is in commercial property, you make money from either asset growth or yield. So it's either the cash flow from rents or the cash you get from selling your property or borrowing against it. Macroeconomic changes like this is usually an indicator that you may need to tweak your mix. You may need to have a look at, okay, I'm used to getting 8% as a yield. Perhaps start thinking, all right, well, if this does slow down the economy, maybe my yield is going to be 4%. How am I going to respond to that? Do I need to lease more products out? Do I need to have a look at changing the financial structure of my corporate vehicle? Do we need to have a look at changing the way we're spending money and getting income in? Alternatively, now may be a good time to sell properties. If you're looking at, okay, do I sell now or in 5 years' time? It may take 5 or 10 years for Trump's changes to go through, and it'll probably take another 2 or 3 years before we get another circuit breaker. It may be a time to sell. Not all investors are buy and hold, as Warren Buffett is very well known for. A lot of investors realize that they make their money by selling after a couple of years and getting a good asset growth. So asset growth and yield is something that I think is going to change, and you need to put that into your mix of, okay, how do we react to it? Now, flow of money is going to be interesting. It's not like these tariffs are going to change the amount of money that's sloshing around in the Australian economy, for argument's sake. So where was the flow of money going to go? If the stock market crashes, and I think some of the exchanges have dropped 20% in the last week, so we're in the midst of a stock market crash. It's more a sliding down rather than a Black Friday when it just goes plummets. But you're going to find that people are saying, once again, my yield isn't going to be there and my asset growth isn't going to be there. Traditionally, property and stock have been at opposite cycles. And once again, I've been uncomfortable the last 2 years that property has been so high and stocks have been so high as well. That's not right. That's not normal. It needed to change. So now the stocks are crashing. So you'll probably find that people will take money out of stocks and put it more into residential and commercial property. And residential property is already fairly hot. It started to cool down. It may peak up again. I remember, I think it was last January, I was noticing on the Sunshine Coast that the economy for residential houses was going down, and then suddenly it just picked up again. And I think that maybe a similar case in residential. You may find that the money coming out of stock markets for private investors, institutional investors don't have a choice. They have to just stay there long term. But for private and high wealth individuals, they'll be spending their money and putting it elsewhere. Well, I don't want 1% in my bank account. Where can I go? What can I do? And you'll find that property, including commercial property, is probably going to pick up a rush on that. All right. So what 3 things can we take out of this? All right. Firstly, don't panic. It's normal to have circuit breakers. We've had them over millions of years. Sometimes they're environmental, sometimes they're financial, like Lehman Brothers and the global financial crisis. Sometimes they're man-made, like World War I and World War II. But you're always going to have circuit breakers. What we're seeing is normal. It's how we respond to it that's different. It's not good. It's not bad. Don't bother about taking sides. You'll just do yourself crazy. It doesn't matter if you're a Labor voter or a Liberal voter or a Republican or a Democrat. It's just stuff that happens. You need to recognize that there's going to be winners and losers. So have a think, what are winners going to do, and emulate what winners are going to do. Protect your soft spots, plow into your future high profit areas. This is a tremendous opportunity to make the most. And at the end of the day, like I said, keep the emotions out. I love the marketing material they had in the Second World War from England. Be calm. There's lots of ads that went around to it. And I'd say, be calm. God's got this. It's not the end of the world. Work it out. All right. Leave me some comments on what you've got. And yeah, it'd be great to see in the next month, the next couple of years. I might have to put a PS video in 3 months' time to see how we go. One final thing. This is not financial advice. Don't go out doing things because Peter said so. Find an expert. Good luck in finding an expert. No accountant and no financial planner has probably been in this space before, so be careful who you get advice from. Use your own noggin, use your own instinct. But like I said, be calm. God's got this. Take care and God bless.